In this video, I'm going to take you over the basics of working with the all-new custom content type, or CCTs, that have been introduced into JetEngine 2.5. Now, if you're new to the concept of custom content types, it basically works like this. A normal WordPress custom post type will store multiple database entries for each record or post you add to the site. So this means when you have a large site, searching, filtering, or sorting can become slow and very much resource intense. With CCTs though, you only store a single line for each entry inside the database in its own unique database table. This means that if you wanted to filter 1000 CCTs, you only filter 1000 database entries. If you compare that to up to 5000 entries when using normal traditional method, you can soon see why this is a really powerful new feature. Now there's some limitations on how CCTs work at the moment, so they're not ideal for every use case, and throughout this video I'll discuss a few of those limitations. If you're ready to see how to start using CCTs in your projects, let's just jump in and take a look at what we'll be creating today. As always, let me just kick this off by just showing you quickly what we're going to create, the functionality, not the design side of things. So we have a list of clients. We've got a simple filter setup, and we're using the JetEngine 2.5 custom content types to create these individual listing. We can filter them, as you'd expect, based upon the company they work for, and you can stack filters on top of each other so you can search for example, Microsoft and Google at the same time. We've also got a section that allows us to add in new clients. As you can see, very easy to use, typical kind of form you already expect to see. But the beauty of working with custom content types, especially when you're working with simpler data, so data that doesn't require the use of things like tags or taxonomies and things like that, because currently custom content types can't actually utilize those. This is something that I hope will come in the future and we'll have a much more expansive tool set. But for now, custom content types are really only kind of useful when it comes to dealing with things like simple lists. So in this example, we've got a list of clients. We don't really need a ton of details about them, just their name, photograph, company, and a bio. So that's all we're going to use. But the technique behind it is the more important side of things. And then we've got this front end, like I say, ability to add new clients into the list if we want to. And we can set them as draft and we can set them as approved. So what I'm going to show you in this video is how to work with custom content types, how you can then link that through to working with JetSmartFilters, and how you can use the forms and the account function to create a front-end form to be able to add content into your listings. So let's start by taking a look at the tools we're going to be using. We've got JetSmartFilters and we've got JetEngine 2.5x installed. We have to have 2.5 to get access to the custom content types. You're also going to need to have Elementor installed. You don't need Elementor Pro, but it is useful for certain aspects. But for this, you don't really need it because we can just use the basic template instructions that we have for pages and sections, and that'll do pretty much everything we need. So the first thing we're going to need to do is activate custom content types. To do that, we go to JetEngine and we simply go to the JetEngine entry. And from there, we've got all the available modules we want to work with. We're going to start off with the custom content types, but we also need to have the profile builder and forms enabled. Click Save. That will activate those options. And once they're activated, then we can make sure that everything else is set up and configured correctly. Now, what we're going to do first of all is set up the custom content types, because that's the key of everything that we're going to be working with. Now to do that, once you've enabled everything inside here, you'll see on the left-hand side underneath the JetEngine menu, we now have 3 new entries: custom content types, profile builder, and forms. Let's open up the custom content type, and this will take us into a list of all of the custom content types we currently have created. Now obviously we haven't got anything created because this is a new setup. So let's click on Add New. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this a name, and we're going to call this client. Click and you see the slug is automatically created. Then underneath that, you can see this is the DB table name. In other words, this is the table name that's going to be created for this particular custom content type. And this is where the power of CCTs, custom content types, really comes in. Because whenever you create a new custom post type, for example, with the normal WordPress setup, using JetEngine, ACF, anything like that, every single entry that you add in will have multiple different entries inside the database table of WordPress. The problem with that is when you have 1,000 pages, 1,000 posts, whatever it is, and they've got multiple entries per item, Searching and filtering becomes a lot slower and a lot more resource intense because you have so many extra fields, so many extra tables, so many places to look through for that extra data. Having a custom content type with its own dedicated table means that there's only one entry inside the database for each entry inside your website. It also just means that searching, filtering, sorting, all those things are considerably quicker because there's a lot less data to search, sort, or filter through. So this is one of the key benefits of using CCTs. Now, next up, we have the has single page. We're going to leave that disabled for now. I'll come back and show you that a little later on what it's for. But for now, we're going to leave it as it is. Next up, we've got the icon type. So what we're going to do is we're just going to choose an icon, and then you can specify where you want this. We'll say we want this after the first separator, which we'll put just below the dashboard. Once you've done that, you then have two extra options. We've got fields and admin columns. Fields is where we create our custom meta fields that are associated with this custom content type. And admin columns is where we can set up what columns we want to display inside the listing. And I'll show you that in a moment once we've created everything. We're now going to create the 4 fields we're going to use in this example. So the first one we're going to use is called name, which is going to be the name of the client. And you can see automatically creates the ID. The field type of text is perfectly fine. Now all the other options should look very familiar if you've ever used JetEngine before, because we're just creating meta fields like we've done many times in the past. So I'm going to leave all the other options left as they are. We'll set it as required, so obviously you need to put a name in. Then we'll just close that down. I'm going to add a next field in, which is going to be company. So what we're going to do is we're just going to simply scroll back up, type in company. Let auto create the ID. We're going to change this then over to be a select field. Now, when you create a select field, you do have to manually input the field options, but we're only going to put a couple in, so it's not too much of a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the first option, which is going to be Apple. And we'll just copy that, drop that underneath. Add another field option in, and we're just going to call this Google. And same again, we'll just put that underneath there, and we'll do one final one, which is going to be Microsoft. And we'll copy that underneath as well. Okay, so there's our select. We can just minimize that now for our company. We'll add 2 more in. Next one is just simply going to be the bio, which is going to be a text area. So we'll just put bio, choose WYSIWYG so they can style this and make it look nice and tidy. And then the final one we're going to drop in is going to be for an image. So we're just going to call this client image. And we're going to set that to be, scroll down, we'll set that to be a media entry. Okay, so we've now created the 4 fields that we want, the 4 meta fields. And you'll see underneath the admin columns, it's now pre-filled out those 4 different entries, plus some extra information, which if you want to use, you can do. So things like modified date, created date, item author, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to just choose what we want to display. So we're going to close down the item ID. That's perfectly fine to leave that as it is. Name, yes, we want to show that. And again, you can drop in things like prefixes and all those kinds of things. We can make them sortable if we want to. We'll say we want to show the company, and we will make that sortable. It's not a numeric field, so we won't check that. Bio, we don't want to show. Client image, we do want to show. And if you wanted to say created date, modified date, and so on. So let's just say created date. Now, if you want to reorder any of these fields, you can do that. Simply by going to the fields at the top, and we say we'll put the client image as the first one inside this stack, and client image, now we moved it to the top. Okay, so we've now created our custom content type, so we'll add that content type inside there. Now you see in the top left-hand corner, we've got client has been added in. If we click to open that up, you can see there's our client image, name, company, created date, and so on. Company is highlighted because we can sort based on that, but obviously anything else you set as sortable, they'll also be highlighted as well. You'll also notice we've got export items to CSV, which is really, really useful and pretty powerful. So once you've created your custom content type, and you may have a lot of information inside there, you can export that as a CSV file, and you could use that then in lots of different ways. And we have a lot of options inside there. So let's say export items to CSV. You can choose what status you want. You can apply custom orders inside there, and you can see you can order by any of the fields that we have available. We can set ascending, we can set their type, we can even stack multiple order queries on top of each other. You also have a query. So again, you have all those same fields available. We've got an operator to qualify exactly what we want to check against, or how we want to check against the values, drop our values inside there, and again, we've got the type, and again, we've got the ability to stack multiple queries. So this is pretty cool. You could really filter this down to output only specific groups of people, only specific groups of entries, whatever you wanted to do. So it's great to see we have that feature. Okay, so we now have our first thing set up. So let's just add a new client in just so we have at least some basic info. So let's add our media, and we're simply going to choose an image. So I'm going to upload a couple of images I want to work with. We'll add those inside there, and we'll choose this one. And we're just going to give him a name. We say he works for Google, and we're just going to drop in a simple bio. You can see we've got the publish status on the right-hand side. We can choose publish or draft inside there. So we'll add that in, and we now have our first entry. So if we go back to our clients, there's our client inside there. So now I can go through, add a couple more, which I'll do now, and then we'll come back on the next stage. Okay, so now I've added in my 3 different entries. Like I say, you can sort these if you want to. You can see we can just sort them ascending or descending. And like I say, we can set pretty much any column up to do this kind of thing where it makes sense to do it. So that's the first part done. We've now created our custom content type and added in some initial contact information on some initial clients. What's next? Well, now we need to have a way of outputting this information in a listing. Now to do that, we work in pretty much exactly the same way as we would have done previously with just JetEngine. We have to create a listing, and then we'll create a page to actually display that listing itself. So what we're going to do, come back into JetEngine, we're going to choose listings, and now we're going to create a new listing. So we're going to say this is going to be a custom content type, which is a new entry inside here. Select the content, we're going to say client, which is our custom content type name, and then we're going to give this a name. So we're going to call this client loop, and we're going to use Elementor to edit it. So we'll create this listing item, and then we can start building the various different elements. So let's start off by making our life a little easier when we're designing things. Let's come to the settings in the bottom left-hand corner, into our listing settings, and we're going to just set up a few things inside here. We're going to set our preview width, and we're going to set that to something about 450, somewhere around there. Maybe let's call it 500 so we get an idea. Now this is just more of a visual way of seeing what your listing item is going to look like when it's finished. Custom content type. Select the source, so you can see you can say client inside there. This will mean we'll at least get some data that we can see exactly what we're doing when we're building it. Now, I'm not going to worry about making this clickable because we don't want to take this through to a detailed page, because basically custom content types as it's set up at the moment don't have that facility. We will take a look a little later at how you can enable that though. Okay, so let's just go back now into our listing section. We'll hit publish just so we've got this saved, and then we'll start building things out. So the first thing we want to do is we want to drop in a picture of the person that we're dealing with. Now to do that, we're just going to simply choose the dynamic image option. So we're going to scroll down until we find dynamic image, drag and drop that onto our page, and now we can set the parameters up for this particular widget. So what we're going to do is source is set to post thumbnail, and we don't have that, so we need to change that and rectify it. And you can see we have a section called content type client, and inside there we've got the client image, which is exactly what we've set up. So our custom content type is listed. We select that, and you can see that now pulls in the image of the particular person. Now, this is just a demo, so just pulling one of the images in, which is fine. We can set this up to what we want to make sure we don't end up loading massive images in. So we'll set that to something like medium large, and then we'll set the alignment to what we want inside there. Okay. So that's the basics of that setup. Next thing we want to do is drop in the next bit of info. So right now we need to add in 3 more widgets. We're going to add in some dynamic fields. So we'll drag and drop that underneath there. And what we'll do is we'll set this one up and then we'll duplicate it to set the next set of information up. So again, same kind of thing. We've got the source. We're going to change that over now to be what we want. So again, you can see our custom content type is listed inside here as content type client. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down and choose their name. That's that set up. So now what we can do is we can simply duplicate that and just change the values inside there. So this time we don't want name, we want to change that over now to company. And you can see they work for Google. Finally, we're going to do another option. So we can also mix and match with normal widgets. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull in the text editor this time. Inside there, we're going to choose the dynamic tags. And if we scroll down, you'll see inside there, custom content type field. Select that. We can choose our field type, and this time it's going to be bio. And now we can do things like set the before and after. So we'll just put bio inside there. And we can just add in a little bit of HTML codes. We'll set that to strong so it just stands off a little bit. So it's nice and bold. And we'll just copy that from there. paste that at the end and just add in the closing tag. Okay, so that's everything set up. So all I need to do now is just style this to make it look a little bit better. Now this isn't a video about showing you how to style things. If you're following along with something like this, you should be more than accustomed to setting up styling and so on. So I'm going to do that behind the scenes just to make the whole process quick and easy. But for now, let's just hit update and then I'm going to style everything. Okay, so there we go. There's a little bit of styling. So what we need to do now is create the page to display this listing on. So we're going to come back out into our pages section. We're going to add a new page. And from there, we're going to give this a name. We're going to call this client list. And we'll just save that as a draft for now. And then we'll edit with Elementor to open the editor up. And now what we need to do is find that listing grid. So we're going to do a search for listing. We'll drag and drop that onto our screen. Let's close this down. We'll choose the listing we want. So we're just going to type in client. There's our client loop. And you see, there's our list of clients already being pulled in for us with the design we've just set up and created. So what we're going to do is we're going to just configure this to be in 2, and we're going to add in a new section, new column on the left-hand side, and just shrink that down to about 25%. Okay, so that's where we're going to drop in our filter in a moment. But you can see we've now created our custom content type. We've created a listing for it, and we've now output that listing onto this particular page. So those aspects are done. So let's just publish this. Now what we need to do is go and set up the actual filters for this. Okay, so to access our filters, we're just going to come into the Smart Filters option and we're going to add new inside there. So we're going to give this a name of Client Company Filter. So we're just going to keep this really simple. Filter label, we're going to set as company. Active label, we'll do the same on there as well. Then we're going to choose the filter type that we want to work with. Now you can set up pretty much any kind of filter as long as it filters data you have inside your custom content type. For this example, I'm going to show you probably where is the more complicated one, which is setting up a checkbox list where we can just check to see the different companies. So you see it says the data source, once you've chosen checkbox list, data source, we're going to set this to be a manual input because we need to replicate the companies that we set up when we created our custom content type. So we're going to do the same again, new option, and we're just going to put in, start off with Apple. We'll copy that to the next field. Next up, we're going to do Google, copy that next field. And finally, we'll do Microsoft and copy that over as well. Okay, so that's the first part. Now we need to just set up the final part, which is the query variable. Now, if you're not sure what the query variable is, it's basically the meta field you want to filter against. If you're not sure what that is, what you can do is you can come into your JetEngine, into your custom content type, open up your content type, and the filter we want to go against is the company, which you can see is lowercase company. So all we need to do is come back and undo filters, and we're just going to put that exact same entry inside there, which is company. So that's our query variable. So everything has now been set up. We can publish this, and once we've published it, we can now drop it into our page. So we're going to come back into our pages. We're going to open up our client list with Elementor. And once we've opened that up, we're going to drop in the relevant widget. So we're going to scroll down until we find our filter widgets. And what we need to do now is choose the checkbox filter, drag and drop that inside there. And we now need to just choose what filter we want. So we just start typing in. There we go. Client company filter. You can see there's our company filters, and we can choose what we want to do. So it's this filter 4. We need to set this as JetEngine because we've created this custom list, this custom content type inside JetEngine. So we'll choose that option. And then you can say, do you want to apply this to be a page load, mixed, Ajax, whatever you want? And when do you want to apply it on a value change, or do you want an apply button? Up to you how you want to work with those kinds of things. We're going to leave that as it is. We'll hit update on there, and then we can test our page out. So let's just preview our page now. So let's just preview the changes. And you can see everything's set up, including our filters on the left-hand side. We say, let's test it out. There we go, Google and Microsoft, just Microsoft, everything. So everything is working with our custom content type. So this is all really pretty simple and straightforward, but you can see it is pretty quick to work with. And I'm not on a particularly quick server. I'm just on a SiteGround shared hosting on the lowest account. So there's nothing special about this particular account, but the results are pretty quick. So now that we've set everything up, the next thing we need to do is create the form that allows us to have a front-end way of adding content. So we're not restricted to only adding content in the dashboard side of things. To do that, we're going to come back out of here. We're going to create our first form element. So we're going to come back to our JetEngine area, and we're going to come into our forms option. And now we can start building out our form. So we're going to say we'll add a new form in. And if you've never used a form builder before, it can look quite daunting, but in all honesty, it is fairly straightforward and shouldn't take too long to get used to it. If you'd like to see a full tutorial on how to use this, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll take a look at creating a dedicated tutorial for just working with the form side of things as part of JetEngine. Okay, so let's give our form a name. We're going to call this new client. And you can see underneath, whenever you create a form, you're going to get a couple of default entries. Your post ID, your submit button, you're going to have your send email, which is your sort of action. What we're going to do is we're going to set things up the way we need to. We don't need this post ID for this particular step, so we're going to just click on the X to get rid of that. We do obviously want the submit button. So now what we need to do is we need to create the fields we want to add in. So we're going to create 4 different fields. We're going to put our submit button right at the bottom so it's not in the wrong place. What we're going to do is we're just going to squish these up a little bit, because we can just simply drag these over to create a great looking form without too much of a problem. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is give the details to the form, tell it what each of these field entries is actually for. So these need to just simply marry up to what we've got, the 4 different fields, the meta fields we've created as part of our custom content type. And again, if you're ever worried and you're not sure what to do with this, just open up your custom content types, open up the content type you want to map through to it, and have these fields available. And you can see all the data we need is listed there for us. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, we're going to edit this, and we're just going to set up the parameters to specify how this all works and what content is going where. So type text, field type text. This is going to be for the name entry, so that's perfectly fine. Then you've got the name. So what we need to do is we need to put in the name that we want to work with from our custom content type. So let's come back over. You can see the first one we want, which is the name, is lowercase name. So we're going to come back over here. We're going to do that exactly as it is, making sure that the case is exactly the same. The label is what you're going to see next to your form or above your form entry, and a description if you need it, if you've got something quite complicated that you need to explain how it all works. Then what we're going to do is in the placeholder, we're just going to say your client's name, just to put something inside there. And we're going to make sure it's required. Okay, so you can set up some other parameters if you want to, like field visibility and so on, but we're not going to worry about that because it's a really simple example to show you the basics of how this works. Let's apply the changes on there. Let's now open up our second field. And our second field is what we're going to drop in the company details, the company name. So we're going to change this type over to select, because that's what we set up originally. So select is what we want. The field name, again, we come back over. There's your company, which is the select field, lowercase company. So inside the field name, we're going to do exactly that. Company. Label. So you should be seeing it's not particularly complex. Okay, so the manual input we need. So we're going to add an option inside here. And again, we need to do the same thing again, which is going to be Apple, Google, and finally Microsoft. And there we go. So that's our select field entry. Everything else is perfectly fine on there. We'll leave that as it is, and we'll say apply changes. Once we've applied our changes, the next one we've got then is the bio. So same again, edit that, change this over to WYSIWYG, and we're just going to call this bio, because that's exactly what we have inside there. We'll apply those changes, and we'll just set up the very final one, which is going to be for our client image. So what we need to do is set this to be media, because we've got a file that's been uploaded. Come back over, you can see we've got client underscore image. So that's what we're going to put inside here, client underscore image. You need to make sure that if ever you spaces, there's always going to be an underscore or a dash inside there, and it needs to be exactly the same as what you have inside your fields as part of your custom content type. Okay, so label, we're just going to give this client image, and we're going to come down there and we're going to just choose a couple of other options. So we can see we've got who has access to this. We're going to say any registered user. Do you want to insert it? We can say yes. The field value we're going to set as attachment ID, and then we can set up how many files we want to upload, which obviously is going to be 1 for this example, and we're going to set this to a limit of 2 megabytes. And finally, we're just simply going to choose the file types that are accepted. So we'll set JPEGs, GIFs, and PNGs. Okay, so anything else you need to set, you can do that inside there. We're just going to say apply changes, and that's our 4 fields set up. So that's the first part of this done. The next thing we need to do now is tell it what we're going to do when we submit it. Now by default, you can see it just says send email, and that's not what we're going to do. but you can stack different actions on top of each other. So you may want to have it that when a new client is added, it goes into draft status and an email is pinged off to an admin to confirm it. You can do all those kinds of things. But like I say, I want to keep this really simple just to demonstrate the core functions of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this. We're going to change the type. At the moment it says send email. What we're going to do is change this to insert update custom content type item because we're working with CCTs. So we'll choose that as the option. You can see that now gives us a range of extra options. The content type, what do we want to map this to? We're going to change that to client. The item status, we can choose between published and draft. I would recommend probably in most cases draft is going to be fine, and then like I said, you could fire off that email to get it confirmed and approved and published. But we'll leave it for published for this example just as a demonstration. And now we just need to map the different fields to their counterparts. So we've got name, company, bio, and client image, which is what we've got set up here for the fields. And we just need to map those now to the CCT fields that they are related to. So name is going to be name, company is going to be company, bio, and finally client image. Simple as that. Apply those changes, and now we've got everything set up so we can publish this. And now new form has now been created, ready for us to add new content into our CCTs from the front end of our site. Okay, so I've created a page now ready to put our form into. So what I'm going to do is edit this with Elementor one more time. And from there, we're going to add in the form elements. We're going to just search for form, and you can see there's our form item. I'm going to drag and drop that over onto our page. Just need to select our form, and we only have one at this point. So we're going to just choose, type in client. There we go. There's our new client. And you can see there's our form, and all those fields have been pulled in ready for us. Obviously, you can set anything up you want on here. You can choose how you want to submit the data, all those kinds of useful bits of info. Like I say, let's keep it simple. Let's just update this page, and now let's just test it out. So I'm going to preview the changes, and there's our form. So now we're going to fill in some details and make sure that everything works the way it should do. Okay, so let's just pull the details in, and we're going to say that I'm currently working for Google. We'll choose a file, and what I'll do is I'll just simply upload a picture of me, and we'll say submit. And there we go, form successfully submitted. So now if we hop over to the test page with the listings, you can see I've now been listed inside this particular page, and I'm filterable. So you can see Google, Apple, everything is working as you'd expect it to be. So that's basically how you use this function. This is a really quick and brief overview. We've seen how to filter things, we've seen how to create list items, how to create custom content types, all those kinds of things. But there's one more thing I want to show you before I wrap this up. Let's just say you were creating a list and you wanted to have a really stripped down version of information, and then you could still click to go and take a look like you probably got used to when you're working with your typical custom post type. Well, we can do it, but there are still, like I say, some limitations. And I'm just going to show you how this works. I'm not going to create any more fields or anything. So what we need to do is go back to our custom content type, open up the custom content type we want to edit, and we're going to say has single page. Now select that, and it says, okay, there's 3 more bits of information we need now. The related post type. Click and open that up, and you can see we've got lots of different options inside there. But what we want to do is we want to treat this like it's a post. So we're just going to choose posts. Simple as that. Then you say your title field, we're going to select that, and we're going to say the title field is going to be the name, which is the name of the person, and the content field is going to be their bio. So we're just literally mapping those to the normal default WordPress posts title field and content fields. That's it. So all we need to do to start off with. We'll update that, and now we've kind of linked it through, so it will create a post ready for us to actually be able to see that data. And this is the thing that can get a little confusing at first when you don't really know what's going on. Now when we create a new entry, we'll also create a duplicate post that will contain most of the information that we have inside this custom content type. By default, it's not going to include the featured image because we don't have a featured image selected. So what am I talking about? Let me just show you. So back on our add new client form we created earlier, and we're just going to add a new person in. So we're just going to call this, we'll say they work for Google, add a bio in, and we'll just choose an image to upload. Now I'm not going to be too worried about this. We'll just grab something just so we can see how it all works. Okay, so we'll submit that now. And you can see there's our new entry submitted. So what we're going to do, come back into our site. And as we say, we'll go in and take a look at our clients. And you can see there's Billy Joe. We just added that person in. Everything is installed inside there like we'd normally expect. But now if we come to posts as well, we'll see Billy Joe is also inside there. So that post has been created and associated with the information. And if we open that up, you'll see Billy Joe is the title field, and underneath there's our description, so you can see the content has been added in. If we take a look at the document, featured image, you can see nothing is set up inside there. But what this does is it creates a link between our custom content type post entry, whatever you want to call it, and also a post that includes a lot of the same data. So we can link the two together. So there's a couple more things we need to do. We need to create a template to output this information. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to our template section. We're going to come into our theme builder. And from there, we're just going to say we want to create a single post. We'll create a new single post, and we're just going to call this client details. Create our template, and we're just simply going to drag and drop in the relevant fields. So let's just close this down. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pull in post title. We'll come back out of there, and we'll just come back in, and we'll pull in the post content. Oh, okay. And there we go. So that's just pulled that data in. Finally, let's just grab the image field. We'll drag and drop that above their name, and we'll just set the dynamic tags inside there. If you scroll right the way to the bottom, you can see there's custom content type image. Click the wrench icon and set that to be custom content client, and we'll set that to the client image. And you see that pulls the information in. Now you can obviously add any other fields you want in. I just want to demonstrate more than anything how this all works. So we'll publish that, add our condition, and for ease, I'm just going to set this to all singular. So all singular posts will use this template, but you can get a bit more refined if you want to. We'll save and close that, and we've done most of what we need. Now we just need to set it up so when you take a look at one of those clients, we can actually click and go and take a look at their details. To do that, we go back to our loop item, our listings. From there, we're going to open up and edit our client loop with Elementor. And what we're going to do now is we're going to select that image at the top, and we're going to come down and say linked image. We're going to select it, and you can see it says link source permalink, and you can set a range of different things from inside here. What we want to do though is we want to go to single post ID underneath our content type of client. Select that option, and that's now made that clickable. So we'll update that, come back to our client list and refresh the page, and you see Billy Joe is clickable, whereas Paul, Betty Rubble, Betty Livestream, none of those are clickable. And that's because we added those into the database, into the custom content type, before we added the has single page option. So that's basically what happens there. We can still use our filters. Everything is still working the way you'd expect it to. So you can see, we can just disable, we'll go for Microsoft and only Microsoft. So everything is working, but we've now created a much more feature-rich setup using custom content types, using smart filters, all the options we have available to us with this new 2.5 update of JetEngine. Now this is a really simple example of how you could use it, and there are so many different ways you could use it. But hopefully this has given you an insight into how custom content types work. So that's how you can use CCTs and how you can combine them with your various other features within JetEngine and JetSmartFilters. If you'd like to learn more about JetEngine, check out the playlist now that's on screen. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up, as it really helps the channel out. If you didn't though, well, feel free to hit that thumbs down button twice, as that works pretty well too. As always, all of the applicable links are in the description below. My name is Paul C. This has been WPTuts, and until next time, take care.